Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. I'm not sleepy, and there is no place I'm going to. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. In the jingle jangle morning, I'll come following you. Though I know that evening's empire is returned into sand, vanished from my hand, left me blindly here to stand, but still not sleeping. My weariness amazes me, I'm branded on my feet. I have no one to meet, and the ancient empty streets too dead for dreaming. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. I'm not sleepy, and there is no place I'm going to. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. In the jingle jangle morning, I'll come following you. Take me on a trip upon your magic swirling ship. My senses have been stripped, my hands can't feel the grip, my toes too numb to step. Wait only for my boot heels to be wandering. I'm ready to go anywhere, I'm ready for to fade into my own parade. Cast your dancing spell my way, I promise to go under it. Hey, Mr.
Hello, everyone. Today, I bring to you a dialogue with Paranjoy Guha Thakurta. I have followed him for many years. I consider him one of the fearless journalists who are keeping the integrity of journalism alive in an era where paid media, subservience to those in authority are becoming the norm. Paranjoy is a publisher, journalist, filmmaker, and a teacher. Amongst the various institutions that he teaches are Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, and Jamia Millia University. He's fearless in his journalism, very creative in the films that he has made, and committed to preservation of democracy in India. I hope you enjoy this dialogue where we keep wandering, taking different pathways of things that he believes in, things that he has done, and his imagination of what journalism and communication means for those who have interest in following it, pursuing it as a career in the future. So over to Paranjoy Guha Thakurta. So hello Paranjoy, I'm so glad to have this conversation with you.
It's my honor.
And
It's my privilege.
I'm very excited also because, and I'll tell you a reason. Professionally, I call myself an ethnographer of social imagination and catalyst of co-creation.
Will you explain what you mean in simple language?
Yes.
Saran.
Okay. In simple terms, it is about how collectively we imagine the future.
Okay.
That social imagination is influenced by various factors, but primarily by media. And by media, I mean everything, not just the media as in broadcast media, but the books we read, the stories we carry forward, the TV we watch, the speeches we hear, everything. So that's where my interest is.
When you mean media,
Hmm.
You've talked about television. You've talked about what you read, the written word, the spoken word, the audiovisual medium.
Hmm.
You have not mentioned a word called internet. Internet, the World Wide Web, WWW.
That's fair. And that's also because I'm trying to avoid reference to technology at this stage, but I'm taking my own media in its more rudimentary forms.
The
And
plural of medium.
yes, correct.
Okay, so go ahead.
So
Ask
now,
me question.
so my curiosity for talking to you is, with your vast experience uh, as a person who has written, who's made movies, who's made films, who have been activists towards certain values, certain beliefs, both as an individual and as a collective conscience of the society. I do want to talk about the state of media, the influence of media, past, present, and the future, the corruption that creeps into it. And my curiosity is, how might we, as citizens or as students of media, uh, create a world where people still have the choice and the freedom and the space in which they can actually develop their own imagination, their own consciousness, and not be controlled by people who have an agenda.
Now, you've asked me actually half a dozen questions
Yes.
in that one, what you claim to be your opening question. To me, it's not just one question, but at least six questions you've asked me. How much time do you give me to answer those six questions that you've raised?
As long as you need.
Okay, Uday, if I may address you by your first name,
Yes.
I have, I'm 68 as we record. I'm going to be 69 in a few months from now. I've spent approximately 47 years working as a journalist. As a journalist in all the different media, the written word, the spoken word, and the audiovisual medium. I have seen how mass communications have undergone dramatic changes in this period of time. It's almost unrecognizable. And for my children to imagine what mass media or mass communication was half a century ago, it's very difficult for them to understand it. So let me go step by step. The internet is what, barely 3 decades old. Even 3 decades ago, the internet was not accessible to large numbers of people. That started changing, and the pace of the use of the internet has dramatically changed in the recent past. Today, we have a situation where, out of all the people on the planet, certainly two-thirds, perhaps closer to three-fourths, 3 out of 4 people on the planet have used the internet or are using the internet. And the internet is impacting the lives of people who do not even use the internet. And I can explain this in greater detail if you want to. For instance, a very poor person, an illiterate person who cannot afford a mobile phone, that person needs somebody's help to use a phone, but that person also needs an identity card, the Aadhaar card. That person needs to have a bank account, otherwise she or he will not be eligible to receive some money that the government would give him. So she or he will have to go to somebody who knows how to use the internet. And I'm not just talking about infants. I'm talking about young people and adults. So that's one part of the story. Secondly, the internet, as it has evolved over the recent past, was by its founding fathers, including people like Tim Berners-Lee, was meant to be a medium that would liberate people. It would strengthen democracy, weaken authoritarianism, make communications that much more accessible to larger and larger numbers of people, and thereby democratize society. We've actually seen the reverse of what has happened. And few could have imagined that just a few giant multinational corporation and conglomerates would be controlling, would be exercising such amazing control over what people read, what people heard, what people watched, and thereby actually the way people think, the way people behave, and trying to anticipate this. Now, among the two of the largest internet companies on the planet, they're both based in where you are in the United States. If you look at the biggest corporate conglomerates on earth, once upon a time, it used to be the oil companies, the steel companies, the Walmarts of the world, the telecom companies of the world. And today you have the internet companies, headed and founded by people who are in their 40s, younger than us, the richest people on the planet. Just let me give you only two examples. Alphabet Incorporated, under which comes Google and the wide range of services that Google provides. YouTube. Number three, the Android operating system. Take another corporation, Meta. Under it comes Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram. The kind of power that just these two conglomerates wield was unimaginable. The American professor Shoshana Zuboff's very famous book on the age of surveillance capitalism has a very, very amazing subtitle. It talks about, I may have got the title a little wrong, but what she's saying that is we have to fight for a human future. We have to fight for a human future in the new frontiers of power. So her book is about the fight for a human future in the new frontiers of power. The Netflix documentary called Social Dilemma, in which she features, it talks about the addiction, the new addiction of humankind. If I tell people, not just young people, anybody, that can you not look at your mobile phone for 24 hours? There are very few people who will say, yes, I can do it. Some people will ask, what do we do? So I said, you read a book, listen to music, take a walk, go for a swim, climb a mountain, do anything. Don't look at your mobile. Very few people can actually do it. The addiction in certain respects is worse than an alcoholic who experiences delirium tremens. His hands start shaking because he hasn't had a shot of whiskey in the evening. This addiction is amazing. The documentary film called Social Dilemma also tells you that there are only two sets of organizations that describe their consumers as users. One is, of course, the social media platforms. And the second are the drug dealers and those who sell you different kinds of drugs and alcohol. That's an amazing transformation to human society. And India being the most populous country on the planet, and unlike the People's Republic of China, which has shut off access to these giant multinational information technology conglomerates, India is the place where it's all happening. It's got the largest user base, say, for WhatsApp. I mean, when this country became politically independent in 1947, a telephone, a landline was a luxury. Fast forward. Today, as we talk, out of 1.4 billion Indians, over 1.1 billion subscribers exist if you visit the website of the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. That means there are over 110 crore SIMs, S-I-M, the subscriber identity module, the little chip that goes into your handheld device. We've seen new forms of surveillance technology. We've seen new forms of corruption. We have seen new forms of spyware. But these giant conglomerates, they not only know what you want, in the sense what food you like, what music you like, the songs you like, the film stars you like, they can predict your behavior. They can even try and predict who you might vote for. You think we are in a brave new world where, Facebook gives me enough, I don't have to remember people's birthdays and wedding anniversaries. I can share my holiday pictures. Google helps me travel whichever part of the country, whichever part of the world, through lanes and by lanes, that map. And it's free. Oh, no, we're paying for the internet service, of course, but it's free. Otherwise, without realizing that we are the products, we are the service. We are their product, their service. And this kind of change that's happened to human society is both very, very frightening and very, very dangerous. At the same time, it is not something that we can escape from. It is there with us. It is very much there with us. And now it's going to evolve, not just into the Internet of Things, a whole lot of things. I mean, you are basically, instead of democratizing communications and the way human society functions, we are becoming increasingly dependent on a few giant multinational conglomerates. I'll try and answer a question which you started off. When you talk about social imagination, what do you do in a country like India? Is it one society, 1.4 billion people? Or is it numerous societies? Just because we happen to be the only country on planet Earth, the only country out of 200 countries on this planet, where on your currency note, you have 17 languages. And you have 21 languages on the 8th schedule of the Constitution of India. And 4 of those languages have common scripts. But there's one language which is not there in the 8th schedule of the Constitution of India, but there on your currency note is the language I'm using to communicate with you. Because your mother tongue is Marathi, my mother tongue is Hindi. हम दोनों एक साथ शायद हिंदी में भी वार्तालाप कर सकते हैं. A lot of people don't know Hindi भारतवर्ष का राष्ट्र भाषा नहीं है. It's the Raj Bhasha, the difference between a national language and a state language. So given this diversity, I mean, India is arguably, and why arguably? It is the most diverse country on the planet. It's not just the most populous country. I mean, you take every possible way in which human beings divide society. Or look at any and every way countries can be differentiated. Geography, language, religion, you name it. Nobody comes anywhere near India. India also happens to be one of the most unequal countries on planet Earth at present. The gap between the rich and the poor. I mean, there was always a huge gap between the rich and the poor from time immemorial, from the days of the Rajas and the Maharajas and the Shahenshahs and the Badshahs. But there are enough economists today who've studied the economy in India, and they've even argued that the gap between the richest and the poorest have widened and is wider than it was even when the British used to rule India, when the British colonized us. I mean, you must also remember that India is one of the most densely populated parts of the world. I mean, 1.41 billion, we account for how much? 15, 17% of the population of the planet. We have barely 2.5% of the land area. And that's one aspect of India, which is very, very diverse. And you talk about the corruption of the media. I think one aspect of the working of the media in India, and is a matter that is of deep concern and great concern to me and several other people, is that the media has played a very, very important role in the recent past. Certainly the last 10 years, since 2014, when Narendra Modi became the Prime Minister of India, in polarizing society, in spreading Islamophobia. If 1 out of 7 Indians is Muslim, the fact is, because we have so many people, there are more Muslims in India than in all but perhaps 2 countries on the planet, Indonesia and Pakistan. But if you try and create this phobia about 200 million people, to me, and if you're a television channel, if you are a writer, if you're a speaker, if you're a politician, if you're a media person, if you're a filmmaker, and you've contributed to that, to me, that is something terrible. And honestly, I have not seen this kind of polarization that has taken place in Indian society thanks to the media. Just to mention one point, Islamophobia. I think Islamophobia is today at a level where it wasn't. I mean, Islamophobia has peaked to a level where it was in the 40s. My parents were born in what is today Bangladesh, what was then East Bengal, a country which is today, as we talk, in turmoil. And they saw the first, the displacement, the internal displacement, when 2 parts of the subcontinent were divided, were partitioned. Punjab and Bengal had to bear the brunt of that partition. Then there was Bangladesh and Pakistan. Bengal was divided even before that. I mean, I have heard from my own parents the blood on the streets of Kolkata. I've heard from them the story of the Great Bengal Famine of 1943. I've heard from them stories when the Japanese bombed Eastern India, when the Second World War was on. There are new wars today being fought. There are new kinds of Islamophobia that is there, you know. Internal migration. Just in the 3 or 4 months between March 2020, April, May, June, July, August, we saw the biggest internal migration that has taken place, certainly in the subcontinent, I would even argue any part of the world, where somewhere in the region of at least 200 million Indians, perhaps 300 million Indians, left cities to go to their villages because of the harsh, unnecessarily harsh, criminally harsh lockdown that was imposed by the Modi government on the 24th of March 2020 in the name of containing the pandemic. What was done was a criminal act. For the first time in the history of India, you saw the reverse migration. All along, internally, people moved from villages to cities, but this time it was the other way around. That's one strange way in which we've regressed and gone back in time. I've already talked to you about Islamophobia, the new wars that are being fought, the new world wars that are being fought across the planet are the wars to contain the giant digital monopolies.
Let me set a little framework. As I told you earlier during our earlier call that I'm doing this as an oral history archive to capture the evolution of India's imagination. And my target is young people of the future when you and I won't be around also. Maybe 30, 40, 50 years from now, they would still watch this and take away something. So my question to you is, now imagine you're talking to a younger generation. What drove you to be a journalist? And the second part of it is, what would you recommend based on your experience of being a journalist, why somebody should choose profession of journalism in this environment that is so vitiated and complex and conflicted?
The first part of your question is very, very easy to answer. I know when I became a journalist in 1977, the last 2 years that I spent studying at the University of Delhi more or less coincided with the emergency when Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister of India. My last 2 years more or less coincided with the emergency. Before my final year exams in economics were over, the regime had changed. Indira Gandhi was no longer the Prime Minister of India. Morarji Desai had become the Prime Minister of India. That was the first time I voted also. You know, those were days you had to be 21 to vote. Now the age has come down, of course, to 18. So those were different days, of course. It has to. Life has to evolve. All of us have to evolve. But wait, the reason why I became a journalist, I studied in a prestigious undergraduate college and a prestigious postgraduate college. I had a range of choices in front of me. I could have been a diplomat, a civil servant. I could have been part of the corporate sector. I could have been a teacher. I almost became one. I decided to become a journalist because I saw at a very impressionable age, between 20 and 22, what it meant not to have democracy, including freedom of expression. What do you do when a regime views anybody who is critical of it as anti-nationals? I regret to say we've gone back. In certain ways, the last 10 years has seen an unspoken, unstated, unwritten, unannounced emergency under Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So that's the parallel. Yeah. So to come to your second question, which is a little more complicated, is that, look, let's look at what makes India unique. It's the youngest of the large countries in the world. Which are the large countries in the world? India, the People's Republic of China, Indonesia, the United States of America, Brazil. Largest in terms of population. And the sixth largest is Pakistan. Now, one state in India, Uttar Pradesh, has more people than Pakistan, because 1 out of 6 Indians live in Uttar Pradesh. And Uttar Pradesh has shown amazing, the people of Uttar Pradesh in the recently concluded 2024 Lok Sabha elections have surprised everybody. both the supporters of the regime and the opponents of the regime. Be that as it may. To return to the question that you asked about young people, yes, what is the big difference between India and China? You could argue about presence of democracy, absence of democracy, state of the economy, state of per capita income. You could also talk about economic systems, political systems, etc., etc., etc. The two major areas of difference, I believe, is that India is more diverse than the People's Republic of China. But our demographic profile is very, very different. Say both countries have 1.4 billion, 140 crore people. But the median age in India is, some people will say 28, some people will say 29. In China, it's 38 or 39. That's the crucial difference. There are several other differences. This is a subject on which people can, several books have been written and several books will continue to be written. Would I advise a young person to become a journalist? I said, you really want to take risks? You want to walk a very difficult road? You want to get into a profession where the chances of you earning a good amount of money are negligible, where you may have to personally suffer for your views. Across the world, and certainly in India, media organizations are throwing people out. There are fewer jobs in the media than before. You had the written word, you had the spoken word, you had the audiovisual medium. This camera, this phone enables me to do more than anybody could have done 20 years ago. The size of the camera would be like 40 times bigger. The quality of the pictures, the quality of the sound, everything put together. So what is journalism? What is the media? Journalism, old Latin word, diurnalis, once in a day. I mean, it's become completely irrelevant. Yeah, I mean, it's not once in a day, it's 24/7 into 365 days a year. No. Communication, communicating to people. What kind of communication? You could be in advertising, you could be in public relations. Not a journalist. A journalist has to hold truth to power. A journalist is a person who holds accountable or tries to hold accountable those who are in positions of power and authority. Tries to hold that mirror to the rest of society of those who are abusing their power and authority, who are not behaving or acting in a manner that benefits large numbers of people. And that means you're taking on the powerful, you're taking on the rich. And that means that in communicating to large numbers of people, you're also taking certain positions. Now, the first job I had in 1977 with a monthly magazine which went defunct more than 4.5 decades ago. My first editor was a gentleman who's no more. His name was Bhavani Sengupta. And I came up with this simple, naive question. You know, a journalist is supposed to be...
Was that Sunday magazine?
No, that was Perspective. Sunday had taken off around that time. It had more resources. It was doing amazing work. After the emergency, you know, it was like taking a cork out of a fizzy bottle, and there was a proliferation of very, very good publications. Indian journalism found its voice again. But to return to what Bhamani Sengupta told me, and these are words I can never forget. It's a standard. You called me an activist?
Yes.
You did. So what? I wear many hats. I'm a man. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a writer. I'm a speaker. I'm a maker of documentary films and music videos. What is an activist? Who is an activist? Right? I have the right to wear many hats, to cover the absence of hair. Journalism has become very risky. Not advertising, not public relations. Why? Because it's as risky as those who do open heart surgery, who fly planes, who clean your sewers and risk death. Yes, journalism has become very, very difficult, very, very tough, and it's become tougher than before to communicate that which people want to write. There are very definitions being made of what is news. One such definition, if I remember correctly, by a British editor, was that news is what someone somewhere wishes to hide or suppress, and the rest is advertising. The rest is advertisements. So if you want to expose corruption in high places, if you want to report that which those in positions of power and authority don't want reported, then you've chosen a difficult profession.
So I want to come to another part is, you said journalism has these so many, it's a difficult path for younger generation to pursue it as a career, a path littered with mines, unless you decide to make it a career in Godi media or whatever might be the future version of it.
Stop. What is Godi media? Tell your viewers, what is Godi media? It was a phrase coined by Ravish Kumar, one of the finest journalists in this country. What is Godi? Godi is a lap. Okay? There are journalists in journal, and mind you, this is a line I make every time I'm given an opportunity to speak, and you've given me so much time. I can't help but compare journalists to dogs. I'm a great animal lover. My family is filled with animal lovers. I think very more often than not, dogs are often better than human beings. But it's important to compare dogs with journalists. Journalists are called watchdogs of society. When the burglar has come into a home at 4 o'clock in the morning to rob things, and your dog has started barking, your pet dog, the burglar may not know that the dog cannot bite. It's very old fellow. It can only bark. Its bark is far, far worse than its bite. But the burglar has been alerted and runs away. But then there is the lap dog. Godi, the lap dog. The dog that doesn't bark, that doesn't bite, but merely wags its tail if you stroke it gently, especially if the lap belongs to an important person, a politician, a corporate captain, a top military general, a senior government official, or even a mafia don. Godi media. And you, of course, have the dogs that empower human beings. A dog that helps a visually challenged person cross a street. A dog that sniffs out drugs and explosive substances from a pile of luggage. The classic Saint Bernards who rescued people caught in blizzards. So just as there are dogs and there are dogs, there are journalists and there are journalists. And I forgot to mention one thing, so I'll mention it now. Don't be surprised, India is the only country in the world which has so many television channels, so many publishers, and to control and to give, what Narendra Modi has been successful in doing is control the large numbers of these Godi media and converted a very, very substantial section of the so-called mainstream media, Mukhya Dhara, or the so-called legacy media, into singing praises for those in power and criticizing the opposition, the complete reversal of roles. This has been truly amazing. And now the government wants to control those on YouTube.
The new broadcast.
Absolutely. Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution of India, which gives every citizen the right to, the fundamental right to free speech. Free speech is not the same as defamation, libel. Just because you have the right to free speech, how do you express yourself? The problem is not Article 19(1)(a). The problem is 19(2) in the Constitution that lays down what are called, supposed to lay down what are called the reasonable restrictions on the right to free speech. Who decides what is reasonable? युक्तिगत restrictions, प्रतिबंधन, ये जो मौलिक अधिकार है हर भारतीय नागरिक का, who decides? Is it your neighbor who doesn't like your face? Is it the goon down the road? Is it your local constable in the nearest police station? Is the lower court magistrate? Or is it the Director General or the Inspector General of Police? Is it the Chief Justice of India? Who decides at the end of the day what is a reasonable restriction on the right to free speech? I think this is an area where several battles are being fought, and they will continue to be fought in the foreseeable future.
So here is another question. During Karnataka election, the BJP and Mr. Modi and Amit Shah use every media possible and every provocation possible to psych people into their agenda, and it failed. Even if you look at UP and Maharashtra this time, with all the resources there at their hand, CBI, ED, everyone manipulating leaders, still people had an understanding of how they wanted to vote, independent of how they were psyched. These
That's,
two,
you've touched subjects on which books can be written. I mean, how can I answer this question to you in a couple of minutes? I mean,
no, so
you
let me
talked
ask
about.
my question. Let me ask
All
my
right,
question.
go on, go on, go
So,
on.
despite the fact that media has become corporate vested interest, and there is people are addicted to this internet and media, digital media, there still seems to be an undertone of communication between people as humans that seems to take people to a different level of consciousness that is not accessible to all this digital media. Do you still have hope
Okay.
in that undercurrent of communication?
I am extremely optimistic. I am overjoyed with the outcome of the Lok Sabha elections of 2024. I never imagined that the Bharatiya Janata Party's number would come down from 303 to 240, 32 below the halfway mark in the lower house of parliament. I never imagined. I never imagined that the three largest states in India, Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, and Bengal, would
So decisively.
Modi a lesson which he hadn't been taught for several years, for over a decade. Let me put it that way. Karnataka, I was expecting actually the NDA to do worse, but the NDA didn't do worse. I mean, so each of these four states, I brought in Bengal simply because I happen to be a Bengali. But I can talk to you about the outcome of the Lok Sabha elections in each of these four states. Let's start with Uttar Pradesh. 1 out of 6 Indians live there. Who could have imagined that the Bharatiya Janata Party, it's the number of Lok Sabha seats, it had 62 out of 80 in 2019. With its allies, it had 64. That the BJP's number would come down from 62 to 33. Its allies, the Apna Dal and the Rashtriya Lok Dal, they got 3 in 2019. They had 2 in, they got 3 in 2024. They had 2 in 2019. Who could have imagined that the Samajwadi Party from 5 Lok Sabha seats would go up to 36, making it the second largest opposition party in the lower house of parliament after the Congress? The smooth coalition between the Indian National Congress and the Samajwadi Party. Who would realize that Akhilesh Yadav would be, in his style of operation and in his way of communication, would be so different from his father, Mulayam Singh Yadav? Just a few facts. I think everybody, including the Prime Minister and the Home Minister, the two most powerful persons in India, never imagined that the people of Ayodhya, where they built this grand Ram temple, that the BJP would lose. That BJP stalwarts like Smriti Irani, Maneka Gandhi would lose their seats. I'm sure Mr. Narendra Modi never thought that his margin of victory in Varanasi or Benares would come down dramatically from a little under 500,000, 5 lakhs, to about 1.5 lakh. Sorry. Very few of us thought that the Samajwadi Party and the Congress would be able to stitch together a coalition that would go beyond Muslims and Yadavs. That it would be what they say, PAD, Pichhe, the backwards. A, the Alpasankyak, the minorities, and D, the Dalits. Very few of us thought that with close to a fifth of the population, the scheduled castes, of which, I mean, Dalits, and within the Dalits, the Jatav community, who by and large tend to support the Bahujan Samaj Party headed by Mayawati, Behan Mayawati, that from 10 they would get zilch, 0. So UP has thrown up amazing surprises. And I, for one, have no hesitation in saying that UP has really shown the way. Once upon a time, it used to be said that the road to Delhi is via Lucknow. It's very easy for me to count the prime ministers of India who are not from Lucknow. Morarji Desai. Let's move on. Morarji Desai, after Morarji Desai, Narasimha Rao, Deve Gowda, Inder Kumar Gujral, Manmohan Singh. Every prime minister, including Mr. Modi, is from Uttar Pradesh, India's biggest state. Let's move on to the second most populous state, Maharashtra, 48 seats. Once again, the National Democratic Alliance, led by the BJP, after it had broken the parties of its opponents, the Shiv Sena and the Nationalist Congress Party, the nose was rubbed in the dirt. Once again, the Dalit leader from Maharashtra, Prakash Ambedkar, the grandson of the great Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, he lost his seat. Once again, the Dalits of Maharashtra voted very, very strategically. And we saw how the defectors, how the Gaddars, the traitors lost. And as we talk a few months down the line, there are going to be state assembly elections in Maharashtra and
Haryana.
almost certainly also in Haryana, also in Jharkhand.
Yeah.
But Maharashtra is a big state. It used to be one of India's most industrialized states. But of course, quote unquote, the industrialization development were focused in two pockets, Mumbai and Pune. But large parts of Maharashtra are extremely economically and socially backward, like Uttar Pradesh, like Bihar. Okay, so the short point is the National Democratic Alliance, they have a different name in Marathi. They're staring at defeat in the coming Lok Sabha, the coming state legislative assembly elections. So biggest state, second biggest state, third biggest state, Bengal, the state where I come from. Woman power, Banglar Maira Mera. The women of Bengal have shown that even if they have a lot of reasons not to be happy with Mamata Bandyopadhyay, Mamata Banerjee, India's only woman chief minister, they stood by her. They stood by her thoroughly. Bengal, after Jammu and Kashmir became a union territory, as per the 2011 census, for the first time since the British started a census every decade, we haven't had a census after in 2021. Yeah, the reason given was the COVID, the pandemic, but we are in 2024. Why hasn't the census taken place? But as per the 2011 census, the second highest proportion of the population that is Muslim is in Bengal, roughly 27%, 33% in Assam. The point is the Muslims solidly voted for the Trinamool Congress led by Mamata Banerjee. And I think one of the reasons why both the leader of the Congress, who was holding the leader of the largest opposition, Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, he lost in Bengal. And the Trinamool Congress, out of 42 seats, it increased its tally from 22 to 28. And the BJP's number from 18, it came down to 12. But the important thing about Bengal is its woman power. Mamata Banerjee is a unique politician in South Asia. I'll give you 10 names, including our neighbors. Aung San Suu Kyi of Myanmar, Sheikh Hasina, Khaleda Zia, both from Bangladesh, Benazir Bhutto of Pakistan. In Sri Lanka, Sirimavo Bandaranaike, Chandrika Kumaratunga. Back in India, Indira Gandhi, Sonia Gandhi, Mayawati, Jayalalitha. She's different from all these women politicians in the sense that she didn't depend on any man. No husband, no brother, no mentor, no male mentor to rise to where she is. So Bengal was also a surprise, in the sense that the BJP became weaker. So these are the three largest states. Since you mentioned Karnataka, let me talk about Karnataka. Yes, the Modi magic didn't work. A little more than a year ago when Karnataka had state assembly elections. But because the way the first past the post system works and the winner takes all works, despite Modi campaigning in Karnataka, the BJP's vote share didn't go up. It's 36%, 36%. In the Lok Sabha, many of us were expecting the BJP to do worse. It did reasonably well, although since the Congress had only one seat, it gained. But the important point to note about Karnataka is that the parts of Karnataka which didn't vote for the opposition. Remember, it's a Congress government in power, which continued to support the BJP, despite all the anti-Muslim propaganda. Coastal Karnataka, and yes, the information technology, quote-unquote, capital of India, Bengaluru, Greater Bengaluru remained with the BJP. So yes, we did, several of us who claimed to be political pundits realized how wrong we can get. But the people who got it completely wrong were the so-called opinion pollsters, 400 par kaha na? One of the leading opinion pollsters, that fellow was crying on live television.
Yes.
Pradeep Gupta. So the point is, rather belatedly, they realized that when they went around asking people so-called exit polls, so-called opinion polls, they're not about to tell them who they're going to vote for. That's the beauty of democracy. Sometimes husbands don't know who the wife will vote for.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So I just want to, before I ask my question, I want to tell you one more thing. In Maharashtra, you may have heard that there was a movement called Nirbhay Bano. I don't know if you heard about that. By a gentleman.
Don't be scared.
Yeah. By a gentleman called Vishwambar Chaudhary, who traveled all over Maharashtra with his team. And essentially, they had one-on-one, face-to-face conversations with people with just one message: be fearless.
And today, that message has gone across the country. And I must say the leader of the opposition has said it more than once. Darao mat, daro mat. Don't scare others. Don't be scared. And as a good Maharashtrian, Uday, as the son of one of the leading and one of the most brilliant Maharashtrian politicians, remember that Maharashtra is also the cradle of Hindutva. It is also, Nagpur is the home of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. That this state where Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi's killers came from, that this is the state which runs the biggest organization of its kind in the world, the Sangh Parivar. Remember, the RSS is the ideological parent of the Bharatiya Janata Party, the right-wing Hindu nationalist party. Remember that Maharashtra is where, I mean, the RSS is going to turn 100 years next year. Maharashtra has also had this tradition of fearlessness, of progressive, of people who have a clear notion, clear views on what is progress.
Yes, and what I want to say here is that you talked about Mamta Didi, you talked about Akhilesh, you talked about many of the leaders who navigated
Rahul
Rahul
Gandhi.
Gandhi. But I also want to point out that people's movements have contributed a lot to generating that atmosphere of fearlessness, be it farmers' agitation, be it CA, anti-CA agitations, and so on. And I think I do remember from emergency days, because that's when both my parents were in prison. And I was just a 16-year-old kid, but I was very close to all the underground work being done. And I saw that there was still a flow of communication happening. People were turning to BBC radio. A lot of underground literature was being distributed. So flow of
Rajiv Gandhi believed that his mother Indira Gandhi had been killed by her own bodyguard listening to the BBC.
That's interesting. So my point is, knowing that there is a grassroots level flow of information that happens through mouth to ear communication, not through internet, not through broadcast media, not through Godi media, are there opportunities to build a new network of communication that replaces the misinformation and controlled information of today?
Yes, and it's also there. The very fact that these so-called opinion pollsters had to bite the dust, that those who claim that the BJP would get 400 plus seats and ended up getting 240, it's because they thought that ordinary people of this country are so gullible and naive that they're going to tell you who they're going to vote for. One example, you talked about people's movements. It's happening. It's happening and it continues to happen. Remember, when hundreds of thousands of farmers set up makeshift townships across 3 parts of the national capital, when they were prevented from entering the national capital, this was the peak of COVID. This was farmers who wanted 3 laws to not be enacted. The government, Mr. Modi, does not like to concede defeat. The first time he conceded defeat was when the Land Acquisition Act, the amendment to the Land Acquisition Act, could not go through. But this was an even bigger defeat for Mr. Modi. He tried to cover it up. He tried to give it a spin a year. There were these hundreds and thousands of farmers in the heat, in the rain, in the bitter cold, despite the water cannons, despite the barbed wires, despite the spikes on the road, they remained in those 3 makeshift townships until on Guru Nanak's birthday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi put on hold the implementation of those 3 farm laws and used words like, very rarely, if ever he uses, tapasya, prayer, forgiveness, maafi, shama. He didn't use those 2 words, but effectively he had to back down. Because this was, you're dealing with the annadatas, those who provide you food. No farmers, no food. That was their slogan. You tried to paint them as separatists, as Khalistanis. You tried to paint them as Pakistanis. and you had to lose that battle. Remember, these kinds of agitations are rare and perhaps never seen before in any part of the world. I mean, the farmers who I met and the leaders, they said, this is our new independence struggle. This is our new fight for our freedom. And this was a fight not just against the laws on wanting a minimum support price, on wanting, a system of marketing which would benefit the farmers. Remember, this was against also the conglomerates led by the two richest Indians, Mr. Mukesh Ambani and Mr. Gautam Adani. And since you haven't told your viewers something yet, I might as well tell you. I don't know whether I should consider it to be an honor or a privilege, or let me state it as a simple fact.
That you were the only one mentioned in Hindenburg report.
Hindenburg research report. No, actually, I'm the only citizen of India against whom the lawyers engaged by Mr. Gautam Adani's companies are currently pursuing 6 cases of defamation, 5 in Gujarat, 1 in Rajasthan. Several others are involved in these lawsuits, and I am really one of those. I'm the only person against whom there are 6 cases that are pending. There are others also, but none of them have 6 cases pending. And I believe, Satyameva Jayate, truth will triumph. I believe I have not committed libel or defamation, but I try to do my job sincerely as a journalist. I'm no martyr, I'm no hero. I just try to do my job with certain sincerity. So yes, the farmers' agitation, and I'm sure Mr. Modi will never forget it, was a very, very important development that took place in the recent past. I mean, it was not to be dismissed as rich farmers. The farmers of Punjab are rich, they're getting lots of money, therefore they can do this. Other farmers are not that rich. Yeah, there were a few farmers from other parts of the world, other parts of India, other parts of the world that came and joined them in solidarity. Yes, it was largely led by the farmers of Punjab and also included farmers from Haryana and Western Uttar Pradesh. Now, I mean, it didn't happen in 2022 in the Uttar Pradesh elections, by which time the farmers' agitation was almost over, you can say. Be that as it may, you're seeing the outcome today in the Lok Sabha elections. You're seeing the outcome in the elections in Punjab, the state assembly elections, the Lok Sabha election, and very importantly, in the state where I happen to reside in Gurugram, earlier known as Gurgaon, 10 Lok Sabha seats, 5 have gone out of the hands of the BJP. They had 10 out of 10. Now they have 5 out of 10. And with Maharashtra and Jharkhand, when elections are going to be held to the state legislative assembly of Haryana, we'll see the outcome. But as of now, if you ask me to indulge in a bit of crystal ball gazing and panditry, I would say it's going to be a very tough fight. It's going to be extremely difficult for the Bharatiya Janata Party to form the government again. But let me not speculate. Let's see what happens in a few months from now. But yes, the farmers' agitation, and we've seen different agitations happening in different parts of the country. V.S. Naipaul, one of his...
India, the wounded civilization?
No, 1 million mutinies now. Okay, I'm not a fan of Naipaul. Be that as it may, that title of that book, 1 million mutinies now. A lot of people say that, given India's inequality, given the gap between the rich and the poor, given levels of exploitation, I mean, if it can happen in Soviet Russia, if it can happen in the People's Republic of China, if it can happen in several countries in the continent of Africa, in Africa, why hasn't there been this great revolution in India? Is it religion? Is it the Hindu religion to which more than 80% of this country supposedly subscribes to? Or is it the diversity, the heterogeneity, the old saying that everything you say about India, the opposite is also true? But the point is, even if there has been no revolution of that kind where this subcontinent of 1.4 billion have all participated, you've seen several mutinies, you've seen several revolts, you've seen several revolutions, I dare say. The women of Bengal, the people of Maharashtra, the people of Punjab.
So I have a question.
And I can, maybe there are, the counter revolution also exists. I mean, look what happened in Orissa. Who could have thought that Naveen Patnaik would not become India's longest serving chief minister, beating Pawan Chamling's record and Jyoti Basu's record? Who could have thought all these things? I mean, we have so many surprises. Who thought that the BJP would do so well in Orissa? Such is life, such is life. I keep asking, can I make a very trite analogy?
Yes.
The question to which I don't have an answer to. If Mr. Modi thought he was a roaring tiger, is he today a mewing kitten who likes to believe he's still a tiger? Is Mr. Modi and Amit Shah a wounded tiger? And many people say a wounded tiger is more dangerous than a healthy tiger. Or as one of the most brilliant lyricists, I've worked with him, and he's a young man, brilliant lyricist. When I asked this question to him, he said, he may be compared to a tiger in a circus, dancing to the whip being wielded by Mr. Chandrababu Naidu of the Telugu Desam Party and Mr. Nitish Kumar, Shri Nitish Kumar of the Janata Dal United. And I don't have the answer to the question, but I'm raising these questions because journalists like to raise questions, even questions which we don't have answers to. And the second question, which I think is very, another set of questions is very, very important. Has India now re-entered an era of coalition politics? We had coalitions in power between 1977 and 1980. We had coalitions in power almost continuously from 1989 till 2014. You can even say that the Narasimha Rao government was a so-called coalition government because it was a minority government which became a majority government when several MPs were quote-unquote purchased. But, so is it that with the largest political party in India, the Bharatiya Janata Party, with 240 members in the lower house of parliament, 32 below the halfway mark and dependent on coalition partners to get again a majority, have we re-entered that phase of coalitions? The first book I wrote, which was in 2004 and which was revised and enlarged and published 3 years later in 2007, was titled Divided We Stand. And the subtitle was India in a Time of Coalitions. I'm trying very hard to persuade my co-author and my friend Shankar Raghuraman to once again collaborate to write a new version of that book. Very recently, in my old age, in April this year, I made a music video which went viral.
Sahib.
Sahib, that's correct. It's called Sahib, and it was originally in Hindi, and there are 7 different language versions of it. I'm the producer. The singer is an amazing young woman. She's just a few years older than my daughter. Her name is Aditi. The composer is also brilliant. Her name is Vedi, and little plug for my work.
And at the end of our video, I'm going to put that clip also of your video. But I want to go to another direction and then I'll come back to this. So, Pegasus, yeah, you were one of the people who were on whose devices Pegasus software was put, at least as per what you have said.
Allegedly put.
Okay. So my question is based on what you know.
Because the government of India is not conceding whether or not it purchased that spyware.
So my question is, Uh, Assuming that it's true, it's a hearsay, of course. Has it benefited Mr. Modi and has it affected you?
Oh, it certainly affected me. I cannot speak on behalf of the Prime Minister of India. I mean, see, the Solicitor General, I mean, let's look at certain facts. Roughly 50,000 phone numbers were leaked to an international non-government organization called Forbidden Stories, based in Paris. They took they took the support of Amnesty International, and they also took the support of one of the world's best-known digital forensic laboratories based in Toronto, Canada, called Citizen Lab. These 50,000 names were then distributed among 17 media organizations across the world, including India. The largest number of phones, I think, if I'm not mistaken, was in India, but there were countries from all over the world. There was like Morocco and Azerbaijan. The US didn't buy it. Pakistan, France, you name it. I can give you a 1 hour. I've given 3 1-hour lectures on the subject, but let me summarize the main points. The government of India, as we talk, has neither confirmed nor denied whether it purchased this Israeli software. This is the most dangerous spyware known to humankind, made by an Israeli company called the NSO Group. I understand it's now been cloned by several other kinds of spyware. What makes it dangerous is that the user, say, I don't know when the spyware has got into my phone. I won't know. So then it accesses our conversations, all my pictures, all my messages, each and every one of the 7,000 odd names and some addresses that are there. So it will take in what I'm talking to you and also discussing with my wife, what kind of dal should be prepared. Should it be chana ki dal or arar ka dal? So it records everything. Then you need somebody to sort of decipher it. I mean, maybe on some other occasion, I can give you a separate 1-hour talk on Pegasus. But the government, the Solicitor General of India, told the then Chief Justice of India, roughly 2 years ago, that when the Chief Justice of India asked the Solicitor General of India, will you either confirm or deny whether any agency of the Indian government has purchased this software? The Solicitor General said, I cannot answer your question because we're going to alert our so-called enemies, and this may be inimical to national security. Subsequently, the Supreme Court of India, then headed by Chief Justice of India, Ramana, they set up an expert committee, and that expert committee had a technical committee to help them. That expert committee was headed by a former judge of the Supreme Court of India. It brought out a report. The day before the Chief Justice was to retire, he showed these thick volumes. And he said the government of India refused to cooperate with this committee, appointed by the Supreme Court of India. And he says that took it out of a sealed envelope. He was sitting with a bench of 3 judges, dramatically. He said all this in open court, that the government didn't cooperate. Then he said, there's this a thin part of that report. And he said that that report could be made public. It contains recommendations and observations. After he said all this in open court, almost 2 years ago, that matter is still pending before the Supreme Court of India. He said it will be heard by my successors. It'll happen in 4 weeks from now. It hasn't happened for 2 years. When it will happen is a good question. I hope it happens. I hope it happens soon. I'm a petitioner. Now, to conclude this part of, answering your question, we really don't know, because despite what the then Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of India, Justice Ramana, said in open court, those documents were sealed again. They were resealed. And that report happens to be in the custody of the registrar of the Supreme Court of India. When that case will come up, I don't know. But if you look at the list, you see what had happened, these 50,000 phone numbers, and there were 17 media organizations. The organization in India which worked on this was The Wire. And there were a list of names, political parties belonging to both the opposition and the ruling party and their associate, judges, important government officials, including the former Election Commission of India, social activists, doctors, and of course, journalists. And it was alleged by Forbidden Stories and Amnesty International that my phone was quote unquote compromised in the months of March, April, and May 2018. And I got to know about it more than 3 years later. But that report is in the public domain, that some malware was there in my phone. Maybe it's still there. Some people say, why didn't you change your phone? So I said, why don't you buy me the latest iPhone 15? It costs 140,000 or 150,000 rupees. Please gift it to me. I'll be very happy to change my phone. Nobody is listened to me. So I still use that phone. My phone has been forensically examined thrice outside India, Paris, Amsterdam, Toronto, thrice within India by the police in Kolkata, by the technical members of the technical committee appointed by the expert committee of the Supreme Court of India. And yes, most recently, on the 3rd of October, by the police personnel belonging to the special cell of the Delhi police. This is in connection with the news click case.
Yeah. I love your videos. I watched the one about Dharavi and I watched Sahib.
Thank you so
what
much.
I find amazing about it is it confirms one of my hypotheses that once a dictator continues to rule by fear, there comes a time when the dictator becomes a subject of ridicule. That's when the cartoonists, that's when the theater,
The comedians.
yes, they begin to turn them into a cartoon character, and that's where their decline begins to happen. And I think you cannot fight a gun with a gun. You have to fight the person who holds a gun with ridicule. And I think I find your videos are very effective from that way. And my question, therefore, is
Uday, don't embarrass me further. There is a old saying in India कि ज्यादा आप लोगों को तारीफ करेंगे लोगों का नजर लग जाएगा. That means if you praise a person excessively, others will become envious of that person.
एक टिक्का लगा दो.
And thank you very much for all that you've said. Back in North India, they would say, आपके मुंह में घी शक्कर. May you have more refined butter and sugar and may not be good for your health. And in Bangla, they have a saying, apnar mukhe phool chandan, that we put flowers and chandan on your face. But remember, that's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword, like the internet. It's a term of praise that, may your mouth
so here comes my question.
But wait. When people die in Bengal, that's what they put in their mouth before they're taken
Got it.
to the cremation ground.
Got it. So my question is, I have watched several of your interviews, you interviewing people and people interviewing you. And my understanding of you and many of my friends' understanding you is a conscientious, fearless Democrat. And I'm surprised.
There would be some disagree with you.
But anyway, I will work with that hypothesis. So my question to you is, such a fearless, conscientious Democrat and activist, when did he discover the medium of ridicule through video.
Very recently, just a few years ago, and you call me fearless. There are two women I'm extremely fearful of. One is my wife, Jaya, also known as Jayashri, and our daughter, Triveni, also known as Triya. I'm extremely fearful of them. They will not spare a single opportunity to tell me where I'm going wrong. And yeah, you have been kind enough to describe me as a Democrat. My wife will completely disagree with your view, but be that as it may, such is life. You know, in 2021, when the elections to the West Bengal Assembly were taking place, there was a particular person who said, make this music video. And it was called Dike Dike Hao Hoshiar. Beware the communal crocodile. And because elections were about to take place, that music video was put together in barely a month. Everything from writing the lyrics to composing the tune, to singing the song, to recording it in a studio, to making the video. I was privileged that it did resonated with large sections of Bengalis, of people of Bengal, let me put it that way. So I got ambitious, I got over ambitious. And I made a mini documentary come music video based on a very well-known American singer, a folk singer, a protest musician, Woody Guthrie. Woody Guthrie sang this song more than 80 years ago. It was called This Land is Your Land, This Land is My Land. The Hindi title is Dharti Tumhari, Dharti Hamari. And unlike the first music video, I took a lot of time, a lot of effort, worked very hard. And as they would use an old analogy, it bombed at the box office. Very few people saw it. I was relatively luckier with the third and the fourth. But the fifth music video that I made astounded all of us, and that was Sahib. It went viral. And as we talk on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and other social media platforms, and in the 7 language editions, my reckoning is that it has at least had 1.5 million unique views. But it's like, you know, it's like something that came out of the blue I could never have imagined. And as I told you, this is April of this year, 2024. And it helped draw attention to the other music videos, which also then started doing well. But there's only one thing I wanted to tell you. It just taught me something which I would teach to others. One of the, for 19 years, as a part-time, as a visiting faculty member at the Indian Institute of Management at Ahmedabad, I taught a course which has a short title and a long subtitle. The short title was Media and Society. And the long subtitle was The Economics, Politics, Ethics, and Technologies of Mass Communications. Why am I saying all these things? After 19 years, in 23, 24, they did not call me, which is fine. It's absolutely as per the wishes of the management of that institute. But one of the things I taught at least 19 sets of students, numbering between 50 and over 100, was that, and this is where I was wanting to mention this and I couldn't. India is the largest producer of feature films in the country. Not surprising, but it's been there for several years now. In fact, India produces at least about 1,000 feature films every year. In 1 year, it actually produced 2,000. But one thing about the cinema industry, and this is true whether the cinema industry is in where you come from, Hollywood, or whether it's in Shanghai or Hong Kong or wherever, the risk factor is very high. That means 1 out of 7, 1 out of 8, 1 out of 10 films don't even recover the investments that are made. So why do people make so many films? Despite the high risks that are involved. One, you could argue that there's a lot of dirty money in this whole entertainment business. So the people with all the dirty money, who illicit funds they've got, they don't mind losing some of it, so long as they can get a little bit of the glamour associated with the cinema industry. And there are no dearth of examples in India and the US and different parts of the world of the corruption within the entertainment business. But the question is, why do people still make so many films? Answer: the film that succeeds very well. It's like that lottery syndrome. Very few people win that lottery. But those who win that lottery, they become rich overnight. They laugh all the way to the bank and back. So in my personal example, something that I would teach at a theoretical level to students about the high risks associated with the entertainment business and the media business, I actually experienced it. And it came right out of the blue when Sahib was viewed by so many people. And completely unknown people. The singer, she is the first time she's singing a solo song. As I told you, she's just 27 years old.
I'm sure it was used during the recent Lok Sabha elections also.
Sorry?
Was it played during the Lok Sabha election?
Yeah. See, April 2024, it became viral at that particular point of time. People were humming the tune, playing it over and over again. You see, you must remember, by then the first phase of the elections were over in Tamil Nadu and Kerala, which explains to you why the 7 languages in which that that music video was made does not include Malayalam and Tamil. Mm-hmm. It was in Kannada, it was in Telugu, it was in Ohomia, it was in Nepali, it was in Gujarati, it was in Marathi and Bengali. Yeah, there we go, 7.
This is so amazing. I'm going to be now means in the recording, I'm going to be playing Sahib, because that would be the wonderful tribute and conclusion of our dialogue. But
and tell your viewers to contribute to it.
Yes, absolutely.
Because, we've depended on crowdfunding, on small donations from large numbers of people.
Yeah. Just send me a text message of how to contribute, and I'll put it on that video also.
Just go to my website, www.paranjoy.in.
Okay.
There's a donation box, but if there are people from outside India, please write to me at my name, Paranjoy, Paranjoy @gmail.com, and I'll give you the details of my bank account.
Wonderful. I will let them know. And thank you so much. I really appreciate this, and I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
It's my pleasure, my honor, my privilege. And
कैसा घबराया साहिब, बात बात पे डरता है। कैसा घबराया साहिब, बात बात पे डरता है। डगमग डगमग होवे कुर्सी, धर्म को आगे करता है। पटर पटर बोले हैं ये तो 100 में 90 झूठ। पटर पटर बोले हैं ये तो 100 में 90 झूठ। राम नाम का लगा मुखौटा, सबको लेगा लूट। राम नाम का लगा मुखौटा।
खोटा सबको लेगा लूट, सपने से निकले ना जनता, सारे जतन ये करता है। कैसा घबराया साहिब, बात बात पे डरता है। तार खींच के बना दी सरहद शहर के बीचों बीच, बेकसूर पर दागे गोले ये बैठा आंखें मीच। चीन बढ़ाता अपना नक्शा, उससे चिपका फिरता है। कैसा घबराया साहिब, बात बात पे डरता है। डगमग डगमग होवे कुर्सी, धर्म को आगे करता है। इसको तोड़ा उसको जोड़ा, जोड़ तोड़ का राज करे। बांट बांट कर जाति धर्म में सबके ऊपर राज करे। जो भी इससे करे सवाल, उसको जेल में भरता है। जो भी इससे करे सवाल, उसको जेल में भरता है। ऐसा घबराया साहिब, बात बात पर डरता है। कैसा घबराया साहिब, बात बात पर डरता है। साहिब का सिंहासन डोले, ऐसा भी दिन आएगा। जीतेगी जनता सारी, जन का परचम लहराएगा। बदलेगा एक दिन मौसम, मौसम ये इशारे करता है। बदलेगा एक दिन मौसम, मौसम ये इशारे करता है। बदलेगा एक दिन मौसम, मौसम ये इशारे करता है। कैसा घबराया साहिब, बात बात पे डरता है। कैसा घबराया साहिब, बात बात पे डरता है।
I'm out of the list.
तो पानी आप पीछे
दोस्ती बनी रहे, अपनी दोस्ती बनी रहे।